we have reached the point in the appeal that we're going to bring to a close the fact-finding point of process here. Proceed to deliberations if we're ready to do so. And I think everybody understands this is more complicated than some we've had in the past. Before we get into the specific violations that is alleged in the dismissal notice, I would like to, if we would like to, just comment generally on the things we've heard in the last 2 days in terms of possible policy failures or witnesses, just the way that this investigation proceeded, or the point at the time that it did. Anybody like to comment on that before we get? You might want to do it twice, once at the beginning and once at the end, and maybe come down to that. But some of those things we can just point out as we proceed and get into the record. We might have some recommendations, but we still need to come down to not voting on these individual things. So I want to sort of break it up into 2 sections. Anybody want to start and just relay some general impressions?
Well, speaking of breaking it up in 2 parts, it seems like what I've heard the last 2 days is 2 stories, 2 cases. The county did not seem like to me that they treated him as an equal like everyone else had been treated. It seemed like to me that they purposely picked him out and said, you're going to be the one that gets punished for whatever's been going on around here for years. Because nobody else got punished for that. And then it comes down to, this went on for 2 years with him, so I can understand Mr. Breckenwell's contention that he was arrogant enough not to have one incident, have it investigated, get an admonishment, and then be over with, get it filed away in personnel file. He kept on for 2 years with the affairs, the lying, not telling anybody. So that, that's got a minus against him. And then we have all this judicial stuff that I don't think I'm comfortable with making any decisions on. If I had to make a decision right this second, I think I would have to go with Mr. Breckenwell. His explanation of what he did and what he considered and what he did not consider. I don't think Mr. Gardner's been treated fairly in this, but I'd like to see something different than a termination. Mr. Breckenwell had a lot of evidence there. The county's presented the evidence. It's very clear to me. But you don't take a 27-year employee and throw him away for something that no one else has ever been terminated for or even disciplined for. That, it's acceptable practice. And I've been in those situations and I understand them. It's accepted. Don't stir the pot, we won't bother you type thing. You want a motion?
No, I don't want a motion yet. Let's just talk in general terms.
Okay. That's all I want to say.
I think it's important that we sort of collectively synthesize some of this.
Yeah.
Go next.
Yeah. I have some real concerns about this case with the internal investigator not being here. I think that omission really stands out to me. I made a comment about it yesterday. I can't understand when you have this large a case and we do an internal investigation and it's like Mr. McKinnon has said, why wouldn't we have her here? She's one of our employees, we would have had her here. She should have been here. Then she could either stand behind what you put out there, and she could be questioned, and I think that gives him the ability to face his accusers. So I really have a problem with that. And then I have another problem with the fact that we opened and reopened the case, they didn't get the paperwork, and they were told, well, you didn't ask for it. I have a problem with that. It doesn't work good with me. I think we need to have transparency, as was said, that when we bring somebody here, everything is put on the table. And we don't take and do work like that. I have a problem with that right there. And I'd like to ask a question. Did we make any kind of a deal with Ms. Gidner to get her phone records and separation agreement? Did she get some kind of a deal to get that?
She sure did. I got a copy of that separation agreement sitting
I
here.
mean, I don't need to see it, but
No,
that's,
you can't reopen the evidence.
no,
first
I'm
of
not
all.
reopening, but that
She was-
bothers me too.
They could have called her and they said they were going to call her back.
Let me just refocus what we're doing right now. We're deliberating amongst ourselves. We're really not supposed to ask for too much more
Well, I
clarification.
just tell you that bothers me.
Nor are we supposed to address the attorneys or the appellants. It's really just, it's a
Let's do that. That
it's
bothers
a
me.
family discussion. The board discussion. I hear you.
But I also know that you can't have a policy for everything. And then when you reach the level that you reached, you're expected to make good decisions. And there isn't going to be a policy for everything. And I think you made a couple of real bad mistakes. I think when Mr. Sweat asked you about your affair, you said, not today. Well, somebody might ask her, you're beating your wife? Well, not today. I think you had the opportunity to do something there, and I know hindsight's 20/20, but I think that's a problem that we didn't get the answer, the right answer there. And I think to cover himself when he went to pick up those guns, he probably the next morning should have told Kevin Sweat that wasn't taking place. I think with those kind of things, we wouldn't be sitting here today, and that's fairly simple, but just an error in judgment at that point in time. On the other hand, got Mr. Gardner here after 27 years, and I've heard and I know through reputation, there's probably not a better person on that beach than Mr. Gardner. And he's given a long time, a lot of his life's work and everything. This is difficult to take.
Well, if I may comment, in light of this Drury case, or whatever it was, where it blew up and got litigated and was very public, I'm really surprised that they didn't take careful pains to correct their policies and institute a non-fraternization policy. Because of the fact that when you fraternize, whether it's with a subordinate, in which this case I think it was, this exactly points out the problems that can crop up as a result of that. We have situations here that he responded to her home with the gun, could have been some assignments, preferences and assignments, but his judgment, I believe, was affected by the fact that he was having relations with these people, and this is why we enact policies against them. This was not done, and should have been, and I hope it will be in the future, because it's a can of worms.
Yes, it did.
And that's, to a large extent, you can't have policies against everything. And what you said about having common sense and trusting your senior officers and senior people within your departments to have good discretion and make good decisions is absolutely important. You cannot write down every policy. You can write down the main ones, and I don't think we had a good framework in place. I also think some good decisions were not made along the road here, which we'll discuss individually as we get down to the violations on paper here. Want to weigh in, anybody? Next, please.
This initial investigation was predicated on the receipt of an anonymous letter. Now, I think or the county determined that they knew who addressed the envelope, but they don't know who wrote the letter. That's how they burned witches in Salem. I think would, that Captain Gardner might have got caught up in, and I hate to say witch hunt, but because of what was going on in the press and what was going on in the beach service, I think he looked like a convenient fall guy. And another thing, on the internal affairs investigation, in past cases, we've talked about these subpoenas, non-binding subpoenas, and county employees not showing up to testify when the appellant is relying on these people's testimony. And when they don't show up, I have to go along with what Wade said yesterday. That does not smell good. It doesn't smell right. Third thing, all due respect to the director, he wasn't here. I asked Director Sweat yesterday pretty pointed questions based on these charges and with the exception of the first one, Director Sweat couldn't give me an answer or a reasonable answer why the captain should be discharged. Now, that's all I have to say about that, and we can go through these other things, but I want to make those things. I have a hard time for a man being investigated that's been working for the county for 27 years, out there risking his life, and I know he risked his life on that beach. The county has spent probably hundreds of thousands of dollars on training him, and throwing him away like an old shoe. I have a problem with that, based on an anonymous letter.